Hello, my name is Bonnie and welcome to my YouTube channel, A Knitter Obsessed. This is my knitting podcast where I talk about all of my projects and keep you up to date with all of the knitting things going on in my life. If you are new here, welcome. If you are returning, welcome back. This is my second podcast episode, full podcast episode, my third video altogether. And I just got to start off by saying I am so completely blown away with the feedback and the reception I've gotten on my first two videos. It's completely surpassed any expectation I had. I just thought this would be a fun thing to do. Just fun to talk about my projects and get in front of a camera and get into this community. And it's been so fun watching it get out in the world and see that people actually are enjoying it and wanting to talk about knitting with me. And I'm seriously just so blown away, guys. Like, this has been amazing. I don't have words, but I'm so excited to keep doing this with you all. This is, I think, gonna be a really fun journey. It's gonna be a fun channel, and yeah, seriously, thank you. Thank you. With that said, I want to jump straight into I have one finished object, and so I'm going to jump straight into it. I do have some fun sort of admin extra things to talk about in this video, but I will leave them towards the end, so make sure you stay till the end because I've got a couple of fun things to talk about. But with that being said, here is my finished object. This, and if you saw my first podcast episode, this is not a surprise. I told you I'd finish it, but this is my Lovey Blanket. So let me fold it a little nicer. In my first podcast episode, I had said that I was planning to finish the Lovey Blanket that same night, like the night I filmed the podcast episode. And that did in fact happen. This has been finished for about 2 weeks. I had only had one edge of the bind off left to do. There we go. It's a nice little fold. But one edge of this bind off left to do at the time of that filming. And so I finished it that evening while that video was loading to YouTube, actually. And so it's been finished for about 2 weeks. But now that it's all finished and off the needles, I can really show you guys it. I will be posting some pictures up over here throughout this with just some better finished object photos, since it's a little hard with the camera to really show it off. But here she is. I knit the size medium on this. There were 3 sizes, a small, medium, and a large. So let's see if I can maybe drape it over the chair and give you an idea. But yeah, there she is. She's, it came out to the exact sizing of the medium blanket. So it's, I believe, 38 inches by 44 inches. Which I think is a very good size for a baby blanket. It gives them a lot of time to be able to use it. It's all garter stitch and it is so squishy, like seriously. Oh, it's so nice. It's knit entirely in Knit Picks Brava, which is 100% acrylic. And the colors Wren, which is the white color, and Heron, which is this contrasting blue color. It has this really lovely mosaic border around the edge, a mosaic knit border that I think just adds a lot to the blanket. And then it's finished off with this sawtooth edging, which was really interesting to knit. It took a long time for a bind off. It definitely took a long time to do, but I think the finish it gives to the blanket is completely worth it. I think it's so cute. And it was really fun to watch grow. So even though I was working on it for a long time, just watching each triangle kind of build as it went, and then watching them like turn around each corner and just seeing how the blanket changed the more and more I knit onto that border. It was really fun. It was very, very satisfying. So I highly recommend this blanket, this pattern. It is a free pattern on Knit Picks. It is designed by Sandi Rosner, which, fun fact, one of the viewers of my first video actually knew Sandi Rosner and sent her a message to watch my video. And so Sandi has seen my first knitting podcast and commented on it. And that was just very fun, very special. So thank you, Sandi, for watching my video, and thank you for your blanket pattern. I love it. It's great. My nephew's going to adore it. And I plan to knit it again, honestly. Next time I have a baby coming into my life, I'm pretty sure they're going to get this blanket as well. This blanket used just over 7 skeins of the main color. And when I say just over, I think I ran out of yarn. Let's say this would have been the end, like the final that I needed to bind off on. I think I ran off here. Like there were 4 triangles left to go when I had to bind on a new skein of yarn, which was a little frustrating, but it was just over 7. And then about half a skein of the blue. I had actually considered doing the sawtooth edging in the contrasting color, which I thought would have been really cute because, I don't know, just to carry the color all the way out to the edge. And I almost did it, but I just had a feeling I was going to run out of yarn if I did that. And I started the blue yarn at almost the exact same point that I started my last ball of white yarn. And since I ran out of the white yarn, I would have 100% run out of the blue yarn as well. So it was the right call to not do it in the contrasting color, but I do think that would be a really cute way to do this blanket if you were to weigh out your yarn ahead of time or just buy an extra skein of the contrasting color. But if you finished it in the contrasting color along the edge, I think that could be a really fun variation if you were feeling up to it, or if that was your style. Another thing about this blanket I really like is, while it's not reversible, there's definitely a right side and a wrong side. I don't feel like the wrong side looks obviously wrong. I think it still looks quite nice and neat. There's obviously sort of the seams where you pick up stitches off of the center rectangle. And then obviously the mosaic section, you know, it's not the same pattern, but it does look very neat and it still looks nice. And that is something that's quite important to me. I don't like when blankets look particularly wrong on the wrong side. Because it's really likely that you will see the wrong side at some point. So while it doesn't need to look the same on the back as the front, or doesn't need to, like, it can be the wrong side, I just like it to still look nice on its own and to still have a nice aesthetic appeal on its own, even on the wrong side. And this one does. This one absolutely hits the mark, and I'm really, really happy with it. So yeah, I'm not sure what else to say about it. It's a fantastic blanket. It's really easy to knit, very easy to knit. It's definitely something you can knit and watch TV and do other things. And just when it was starting to get a little bit slog-ish feeling from all of the garter stitch, that was right about when I was ready to start the mosaic knitting anyways, so it did keep me pretty engaged through the entire process, and I really did enjoy the process. I know my little nephew will love this. I know he'll get a lot of use out of it. And I've already run it through the washer and dryer once, and it held up great. Had absolutely no problems. A couple of ends sort of popped out, but that usually happens the first time I wash or block something, so I just retrimmed them and good to go. So, the Lovey Blanket by Sandi Rosner. Great pattern, highly recommend. This is my one finished object for the day. This did take me, in case you're curious, I started it on December 19th in 2023, and I finished it February 25th of 2024, so a couple of months. And that was a couple of months of me not knitting on it exclusively at all. When I cast this on, I had a whole nother baby blanket that I was also working on, and a sweater, and I think I had quite a few projects going right at that time, but I was excited to cast this on and wanted to start it, and so I did. But then I didn't work on it again for probably about a month, so I would say I probably knit this in terms of dedicated knitting time in 4 or 5 weeks, which, again, for a blanket, I do not think is bad. So highly recommend. It's my finished object. And yeah, very, very happy with it. So, all right, moving on. The rest of my project are all WIPs, and just to warn you, every single one of these WIPs is from the last episode. I don't have anything new, but I do have a couple of gauge swatches to show you at the end of this for things that are coming up new, and I've made a lot of progress on my WIPs, so this should be kind of fun. But let's start off with the one you guys didn't see in the last video. So this was a WIP on my last video, but I didn't have the project with me. But this is my Musselburgh hat, which, by the way, thank you for all of the comments very kindly explaining to me how to pronounce that pattern name. And it's very possible I'm still saying it wrong, and if I am, I'm sorry. But yeah, it was very sweet of you, because I, as you noticed in the video, if you watched it, I was a little self-conscious about the fact I had no idea how to pronounce that word. So I appreciated you guys providing me with a little bit of help there. But this is my Musselburgh hat. This is knit out of oh, I know it's Brooklyn Tweed Peary, which is their fingering weight merino. It is discontinued, unfortunately, because I really like this yarn. But it is discontinued. I've had this in my stash for quite a long time. And this is a pattern by Ysolda Teague. It's, if you don't know it, I know this looks insane for a hat if you don't know the hat pattern, but this is a double thick hat. So what you do is you start on one end and you cast on just a few stitches, and then you grow the brim, you grow the crown of the hat. Then you knit a really long tube and you decrease at the other end and you make another crown. At that point, you fold it in half, so one crown sits right up against the other one, and that's your hat. So it'll really only be like that long, which will be long enough to either be slouchy or to have a nice folded brim, both of which should be very cute ways to wear it. So I'm excited. The point of this hat really was to try and get rid of this red yarn in my stash, because I'd had it in my stash for about 2 years, and I had no idea what I wanted to do with it. It had originally been bought for a different hat, and I didn't like the pattern. I don't even remember what it was. And I ended up ripping it out and like retrying it and ripping it out, and it just, finally that hat went away and I just had all of this yarn in my stash. And so I was just trying to use it all up, and I thought that I had about 100 grams. I don't own a scale or anything, so I didn't check that. And it had a long time ago been, you know, like I said, I used it and ripped it out, so it was all just in a ball, hand wound. But I was like, 100 grams is perfect for this hat. I will go for it. And I got to about here, so, you know, maybe about halfway, and I realized I was absolutely 100% going to run out of yarn. So this is all of the red that I have left right now. I don't know the color name of this yarn either, by the way, or I would tell you. I lost the label a very long time ago. But I also had the same yarn, the Peary, in this sort of salmon-y pink color. And I also had no plans for it. So I figured, let's do some stripes. And so my plan is that this will end up being 2 different hats, essentially. It's reversible, and so one half of the hat will be just straight red, and the other half will be this striped, mostly salmon, but with the small red stripes running through, and I'm hoping to have enough red to finish the crown in the red. I think would look really nice, since it'll have a red brim when it folds. That's my hope. I've never made this hat before, so I'm kind of winging it and just hoping this works out. But I am really excited for it. The entire thing is knit on US 2 size needles, which are 2.75 millimeter. So very small needles. It's a very tight gauge, but I think that'll be nice. It should be really nice and warm and have a really good structure to it. This hat also it has mistakes in it, for sure. And I'm just not worrying about it. This is my work project, so I like to keep a project at my desk at work that just lives there. And I just knit on it during my breaks and my lunches, and so it's been growing very slowly. I've been working on this for a couple of months now. But there are a couple of things in here that are pretty funny. I am not sure if this will show up on camera, but for one whole row, I attempted to knit it continental just to see if I could. Which, I mean, I can, but I'm not great at it. I'm definitely an English knitter. And so there's one row with like, oh yeah, you can see that, a drastically different tension. Let me see if I get out of the screen. Yeah. You can see the one row with the different tension than the rest of it. And I'm hoping it blocks out. It might not. It might always be a little wonky there. And I don't think on a hat like this is going to be a big problem. But it is pretty funny that you can really, really see where I tried to knit a different style. And I am clearly a much looser knitter doing it that way than I typically knit, which is expected. But I don't know. Interesting to really see the comparison. And then in general, this yarn, because both of them have been knit into projects and ripped out, and I didn't wash the yarn or get any of the kinks out. And like I said, knit on and off at work. So some days I'm stressed, some days I'm not, but it's really just a mixed bag of tension in this guy. The stitches are not my cleanest. They're a little wonky. And I do think a ton of that will block out and it'll be quite nice. But even if it doesn't all block out, I'm not too concerned. I think it'll still do the job. This is not a project I'm being too picky with. The stripes are a little funny. I lost my beginning of round marker and I didn't have a new one at work. I didn't feel like using scrap yarn. While it's here, I'll probably re-add it. But so I'm pretty sure some of the stripes begin and end in different spots. Like, they're like 1 or 2 stitches over. And I'm not doing anything to do jogless stripes or anything. Like I said, because it's my work project, it's definitely not getting quite as much attention to detail that a lot of my projects get. But yeah, this should actually be done in the next few weeks. I think at the time of my last filming, I didn't mark it, but I think I was about here. I was definitely before the stripes. And once I added the stripes, it started going a lot faster. I think anyone who has knit stripes before can attest that stripes make the whole knitting process just seem to go so much quicker, it's just fun. You always want to get to the next stripe. It's very addictive. So it's growing quite a bit faster now, and I think it should be done in the next couple of weeks, which would be nice because there are a few other hats I'm also looking forward to knitting. So yeah, not that I'm trying to rush through this one or anything. It'll take as long as it takes. I am enjoying it. But I'm also tend to live in a perpetual state of cast on fever. And so I'm always excited when I finish a project so I can start my next one. So yeah, that's my work project. That's my Musselburgh hat by Ysolda Teague, knit in Brooklyn Tweed Puri in 2 colors that I no longer know the names of. So okay, so for my next project, this one should look quite a bit different than the last time I showed it. So this is where my Bibliophile 2 by Alicia Plummer is now. So last time I had just finished the yoke as written in the pattern, and I was having some concerns over whether or not the yoke was actually going to work because my row gauge was quite a bit different. I'm gonna put an asterisk on that, but quite a bit different than the pattern row gauge was. And so it was coming out quite a bit short. And I had seen that it was short. It was only my 3rd sweater, so I don't have a lot of experience on modifying and like coping with some of these things. Like, I've been knitting for a while, so I have ideas, but because it's a sweater, I was overthinking it. And I set it aside and I sort of just didn't pick it up for about a month. And yeah, I hadn't thought about it for weeks until I talked about it on the podcast. And after I filmed that episode, I was like, well, wait, I did a gauge swatch. Like, I can just calculate how many extra rows I need to knit. Like, that's literally what gauge swatches are for. I knew my gauge was off. Like, you're just overthinking this. And so I looked through the pattern and I calculated how many rows we had already knit along the back, how many inches that is in the pattern's gauge, and then how many extra rows I would need to knit to hit that same length based off of my gauge. Now here's where it gets a little silly because that all makes sense. That's very reasonable. I did all of that without rechecking my gauge swatch or what my gauge was, and I just guessed what I thought I remembered it being, which I don't know why I did that. It's an interesting choice for sure. And so I told myself that I was knitting at 28 rows per 4 inches, and it's definitely 26. And the pattern is calling for 24. So my row gauge was never actually that far off from the pattern row gauge. I just sort of got it in my head that it was. I don't know why. But that's okay. So I knit an extra, like, I think 7 rows in plain stockinette before I divided for the sleeves. And then because I was a little unsure if it was gonna work, I ended up knitting one sleeve and then the collar, and then I gave the whole thing a mid-project block. So about, you know, soaked it completely, blocked it, pinned it out, and stretched it to just a little bit vertically, because that's how I handled my gauge swatch as well. And as soon as I did that, I remembered why I wanted to knit this sweater. So part of the reason I'd been putting off knitting with it is this yarn is a little bit rough and a little bit stiff, and it feels a little strange to work with. Like, it's very stretchy, it's very sturdy, and like holds its shape a lot, and it's like a little bit scratchy, and I was just not feeling excited about the finished project until I blocked it. And then the sleeve that's blocked is so soft. It's still this very sturdy fabric, but it's soft and it feels nice, and it's got this big nice folded over collar, which just feels so squishy once it got blocked. And it just made sense. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, that's right, that's why I liked the gauge swatches, because I blocked the gauge swatch. So basically, moral of the story is trust your gauge swatch, make a gauge swatch, wash and block your gauge swatch, and then trust your gauge swatch. And I know all garment knitters say that, but I just kind of, like I said, was overthinking everything and forgot that I had literally already done all of the pre-work to have these answers already. I didn't need to overthink it. So I'm curious if this will show up on camera. Oh yeah, it should. But I've knit some of the body since I blocked it, and it's really, you can see where it blocked. So like, maybe it won't show up. But I had knitted to here before I blocked it, and then it's completely different texture in the non-blocked spot. Like, so much so that it wants to fold in on itself. Like, this part has like a little bit of drapiness, and this part's just completely stiff. So it definitely was an interesting experience, just to remind yourself the power of blocking and how important it is. We all know it is, but to see it directly compared and to really see the fabric change was very, very interesting. So I've already made a couple of modifications to this sweater. The collar was supposed to be in half fisherman's rib, but this yarn is already quite thick. And so I felt like a double folded collar in half fisherman's rib with this yarn would just be a lot of color. So I just did standard ribbing, and I think it came out very nice. I really like the effect it gives. I also went down a couple of needle sizes for the ribbing. So when the pattern called for the whole body of the sweater is knit on 4mm needles, so US 6. And then the ribbing was supposed to be on 3.5mm needles, so US 4s. But when I did that, in this yarn, it didn't cinch the ribbing in at all. Like, it just was way too loose and gappy, and it wasn't gonna work. And so I went all the way down to a 3mm needle, so all the way down to a US 2.5. And that did the trick. I think it looks quite nice. I think it's still a touch uneven, but that it'll even out with blocking. So I'm very happy with it. But yeah, all that's left on this guy now is lots and lots of stockinette in the round to finish the body. So stockinette forever. And then it calls for 4 inches of ribbing on all of the finishings. So there'll be quite a lot of ribbing at the end as well. But I'm really, really happy with it. I think it's going to be a really nice sweater. I was hoping for something that was going to be nice and warm and sturdy and like a good sort of like outdoorsy sweater, and I think that's exactly what this is going to be. So yeah, very happy with it. Very excited I went back to it. I honestly don't think I would have come back to this sweater for a very long time if it weren't for doing this podcast. If it was like talking about the project forced me to hold myself accountable for the project. Like, I couldn't just pretend it didn't exist and put it in a corner and not think about it, because I had talked about it. I'd shared it with you guys. It was on my mind again, and so once it was on my mind again, I wanted to finish the sweater. I wanted to put in the time to deal with it and to figure it out and to, you know, see what I could learn from this project. And so I'm very grateful for that I came back around to it, because I really do think I'm gonna love this sweater. So that is my Bibliophile 2 sweater by Alicia Plummer. Oh, I didn't mention it. It's knit in Harrisfield Designs Nightshades in the color Fever Dream. So that's, I think it's 100% Cormo wool. And their Nightshades collection is really interesting. It's every one of the shades is based on a black yarn background with just a little bit of color dyed in. So the Fever Dream one has this little bit of red in it, and it gives the whole thing this like very interesting dark purple and red color. But there are others where they have more of a green base or a green tint or a blue tint, or they're all really interesting. I actually really like this yarn collection. I think it's really a very cool concept. And yeah, I think it goes well with with the fit of this sweater. I think they're a good fit together. So that's my Bibliophile 2 sweater. Hopefully, this is another one I'm hoping to get done in the next couple of weeks, since I feel like I'm getting pretty close. It's just a lot of in the round knitting now. Which brings me to my final work in progress. This is the one I've been probably the most obsessed with the last few days. All of my other ones ended up kind of going on the back burner once this one clicked in my brain. So this one is almost done. I was almost hoping to have it done before this video, but it didn't quite happen. Mostly because I knit on it for the entire day yesterday, and my hands, you know, couldn't take it anymore, so they needed a break. And when your hands need a break, walk away from the knitting. It's the right decision. You should just take the break. It's a hobby. It's not worth, you know, putting yourself in pain over. So that was what I did. But this, oop, got a lot of yarn tangled, hold on. This is my Shift Cowl by Andrea Mowry. So this is what I've got so far. I believe last time you saw it, it was only about to here. I should mark it. I'll mark my projects going forward so you can see the progress I'm making. But, so I've added quite a bit to it. The idea on this one is that it will get folded into a cowl shape, so along these two edges. So it will sit more like this on my neck. I am so happy with how this is turning out. Especially as it gets close to the end and we're getting the like blues and the greens in there. Oh, it's just so pretty. I showed my husband this today. I pulled it out because he asked what I did yesterday, and then, like I said, this is literally all I did yesterday. But I pulled it out, and even he went, "Oh my God, that's beautiful!" Like, and like he was completely caught off guard by all the colors, and he was like, "This is one of the coolest things you've ever made." And I was like, "Thank you. I blame the yarn." So this is all spin cycle yarn. It's 3 separate colorways, which I'm not going to try and remember. Let's just look them up. So the red one is Devilish Grin. The one that's bringing a lot of purple in, purples and greens, is called Dream World. And then the one with all the oranges and this like kind of lighter purple here is called Wololo. I think they all 3 went together. They blended together so nicely. I'm so intrigued for, you know, the idea of the pattern is you just kind of let the yarn do its thing. And so I'm not controlling the yarn color changes at all, but I'm just so intrigued by how it shifts from like high contrast, middle contrast to low contrast, and it just kind of keeps that going throughout. Like I said, with no intervention from me. It's so cool. I am seriously so close to being done with this. I only have 8 more rows to go. And then the I-cord bind off. So really, really close. This is pretty much the finished size. It'll just, you know, a little tiny bit more on the top. And then weave in the last few ends and block it and stitch it together. So it's nearly there. I also want just a little bit of love for the back of this one. I think the back is so satisfying to look at. So you can just really see the color gradient. So cool. Well, like I said, a little addicted to this one right now. A little obsessed, if you will. But so excited to have this done. I love cowls. I love wearing them. They're so easy. I'm someone who's cold a lot of the time, so a nice cowl is a great way to just sort of bundle up and be cozy. But yeah, ton of fun. I did mark just because I thought it was interesting. I found a mistake and I don't care, especially in a project this busy, no one's gonna notice. But there's one section right here where when I was doing the mosaic knitting, I accidentally held the yarn in back instead of in the front. Or I held it in the wrong side so that way you can see it in the front of the project. So there's just one little orange stripe right there where there shouldn't be. But, which, not that I care, I just, you know, thought I'd be transparent with you guys that there's absolutely a mistake in here. There's also one section where my stitch count was off. I was 1 stitch short when I got to the end of a row. And so I just did a knit front and back and added a stitch in there kind of randomly, and it's gonna be fine. You'll never know. I don't even know where it was. So yeah, you can always, you know, small mistakes like that, they're gonna happen in any knitting project, and you just sort of go with the flow, and that's what keeps it fun. No one has to know, unless you know, have a knitting podcast and you admit it to everybody watching. But but it's fine. I know you guys understand, so. Yeah, so that's my Shift Cowl by Andrea Mowry. So much fun to knit. So addictive watching the color changes happen in the different sections and just not knowing what you're gonna get from one section to the next. It is so much fun. So, okay, and then the last, I wanted to share with you guys a couple of gauge swatches. So, you'll remember from my last podcast, I am super duper excited and antsy to cast on the Wishbone sweater, which I had talked about getting the yarn for it. I had shown pictures of it. I seriously cannot stop thinking about this sweater, but the Wishbone sweater by Veronika Lindberg is my number one obsessive thing right now. Like I keep just going back and looking at pictures of it on Ravelry. I keep looking at my yarns. I keep, oh my gosh, I can't wait to cast it on. And the only reason I didn't cast it on already was because I got caught up in my Bibliophile sweater. And so I wanted to make sure my Bibliophile sweater was going to work, was going to be something I was happy with before I moved on to another sweater. Like I just felt like I needed to give it the attention for a little bit and get it to a place where it was a little bit more stable and happy before I completely moved on to another project and never got around to the Bibliophile sweater. So now that it is in the stockinette phase though, I think I'm pretty much good to go. I think I can cast this on whenever I want. So I worked on a gauge swatch for it, which by the way, this is my gauge swatch holder. So it's just a little binder clip, a binder ring, I mean. And then I have note cards with all of the information about the yarn, and then the gauge it knit up to on what size needles. And then behind that, I keep my gauge swatches on there with these little light bulb shaped stitch markers. Sorry, I was having a hard time focusing on that. I really like this. I hang this up in my office on the wall. I think it looks nice and fun and together, doesn't take up too much space, but I get to keep all of the information nice and handy. So like these are my two for my first sweater that was in my last episode, and we've got my Bibliophile right here. Like I said, the one that I kept not referencing, but I should have. So yeah, I like this system. But the one I'm most concerned with is my, and I'll just take it off the ring for now. See, and they're easy to get off too. But this is my swatch for the Wishbone sweater. So this is done with Santa's Garn Double Sunday in the color Deep Red, held with Knitting for Olive Claret, Knitting for Olive Soft Silk Mohair in the color Claret. And I love this color. I think it's so pretty. It's just the perfect shade of deep red. And I like pictured this shade when I saw the picture for the Wishbone sweater. Like, I don't know why in my head it needed to be this color. And yeah, I just, the Double Sunday is not this deep of a red, and the Claret is a lot more burgundy of a red than this, but together they're just absolute perfection. Like, oh my gosh, I love it. I cannot wait. I did make a bit of a rookie mistake on this swatch, and the swatch is definitely not big enough. It should have been quite a bit bigger in order for me to really get a sense of my gauge. And I'm gonna be a really bad knitter, so this is a more of a do as I say, not as I do thing, but I'm not knitting a bigger swatch. I'm gonna live with this. From what I've calculated, my gauge is going to be pretty close, if not exactly on what the pattern calls for. And yes, I know I'm basing that off of some badly tensioned stitches on the edges. I know it's not the most accurate information, but I trusted enough to go forward with it. And I might regret those words, but I'm gonna stand by them. We're gonna go. We're just gonna go for it. This combo of yarns, by the way, is so soft. Like, oh, it feels so luxurious. It's gonna be amazing. So yeah, cannot wait to cast this on. I will probably cast it on as soon as I finish my shift cowl, because that one's so close. I don't see myself working on anything else until it's finished. But yeah, Wishbone sweater. This is gonna be great. I'm so excited for it. The other ones I got the gauge swatches done for are for my poet sweater plans, which the poet sweater is not quite as quick on the, it's definitely going on after the Wishbone sweater, so I've got some time before I get to the poet. But this is my gauge swatch. It's just knitting for olive merino. This is on a size US 5 needle. Oh, which by the way, the one for the Wishbone sweater, that's US 8, so a 5mm needle. Off the top of my head, I don't know how many millimeters a size 5 is. I apologize. I think it's 3.75, but I could be wrong. But yeah, so I do like the fabric this gives. It's very drapey. It's very nice. It's not see-through, but I think if it was any looser, it would be. But yeah, and with that being said, this is really off gauge. So this is definitely a tighter gauge than the pattern calls for. I think if I were gonna try and hit the gauge the pattern called for, especially using the needle she used, I kind of feel like I'd have to hold this double. Which part of me is thinking about trying and just seeing what gauge that gets me, especially since I'm not planning to knit this for a while. But we'll see. Like I said, this is more of a future plan. It's a little bit on the back burner. I was just excited and wanted to play with the yarn. So the gauge swatch was my way of kind of scratching that itch for, you know, until I have a chance to actually really get to the project. I also did a little mini swatch in the lace pattern, but it is I talked about the Wishbone one not being big enough. This one's way too tiny. I only did a single pattern repeat, and it's definitely way too small. You can't really get a huge sense of the lace itself on a swatch this tiny. So, but it was fun to practice. I just enjoyed, you know, getting the stitch pattern into my hands and seeing how I liked it, and it was a lot of fun to knit, so it made me more excited to do the sweater itself. But yeah, teeny tiny swatch. This one's sort of useless as far as finding any sort of gauge, but fun to knit. So those are my new swatches. I'm very excited. That Wishbone sweater, this time I mean it, it will be cast on soon, because I am going to self-combust if I don't cast it on soon. Like, I can't handle waiting any longer. So 100% happening. But that does it for my WIPs. The other one I had mentioned in my last podcast episode was my hue shift Afghan, and there's zero progress on that. I never picked it back up, so I'm still considering that in hibernation, and I will let you know when it gets out of hibernating. But I just have so many projects I'm so excited about that it might be a little bit before I get back to it. But that does it for all of my knitting. I did mention I had a couple of admin things I wanted to go over, or like more like exciting announcements. And so if you're only here for the knitting, thank you so much for being here. I completely appreciate it. I'm so happy you guys are actually joining me on this and excited to hear about my knitting, because I am excited to talk about it with you. So thank you so much. But if you want to stick around, I have one just sort of fun thing, which is my husband had mentioned when I first started all this, and he meant it in a supportive way, but neither of us thought this was going to be something that happened anytime soon. But he had said that when I got to 1,000 subscribers, he would buy me whatever yarn I felt like I wanted, so that I could review it and knit with it and talk about it for the channel. So it was completely channel driven project. I would, you know, talk about the yarn from beginning to the end of the project and all of this stuff. And I was like, that'd be so much fun. Yeah, of course. And then I'm a lot closer to 1,000 subscribers than I thought I would be at this point. So it's time to talk about that yarn, because it's coming up if things continue at this pace. So my initial thought is that I would like to try out the Manchalope yarn by Wool Dreamers, because I've never knit with unspun yarn before, and it looks like it's just a very interesting experience. I've heard a lot of people say amazing things about it. And my project that I'm envisioning would be the Miles shirt jacket pattern, which I believe is by Ozetta, but if I'm wrong, I will correct that. And I think that would be a lot of fun. I think that'd be very interesting. It's very unique yarn. It's very different. So I could, you know, have a lot to say about it, what knitting with it is like, what the whole experience is like. But I want to hear from you guys. Is there a yarn you have in mind? What do you think I should try? Because I'm pretty open. I like trying new yarns, but I don't get out of my comfort zone that often. So go ahead and push me. I tend to prefer natural fibers. I tend to prefer non-superwash if I can, but it's not a hard and fast rule. But I'm pretty open. So please talk to me in the comments. Give me some suggestions. This is definitely a decision I get to make coming up soon, which I'm so excited about. Like, oh my goodness, did not see that coming. So yeah, let me know. And again, thank you guys so much. I didn't think we'd be having this conversation this early. So it's gonna be a ton of fun. I'm excited. I'll make a whole like project video or something for this and it'll be a lot of fun. And then finally, and this is, I'm getting completely away from knitting here. So again, if this isn't your thing, I understand. But I got quite a few comments on my first video where when I mentioned that I teach ballet and that I do a lot of ballet dancing, people really resonated with that and they wanted to know more. So I thought I would do a little Bonnie's Ballet Corner, maybe, if you will. We'll see if that name sticks. But kind of give you guys a little insight into where I am with that particular corner of my life as well, because that's another one of my massive obsessions. So a few people had asked if I had, if I could teach them some ballet or if I had any resources for learning ballet in an online format. And I do not teach online. I've never taught dancers that I can't see in person, and I am only about a year into my dance teacher journey at this point. So it's not a step I'm super willing to take at this moment. I feel like I still have a lot to learn as a teacher before I venture off in that direction. That being said, I do have some good resources. So if you want a really good free ballet class, definitely ballet bar videos on YouTube, I highly recommend Kathryn Morgan. Her videos are super fun. She usually does like a theme. Like she'll pick a certain ballet and only do music from that ballet, or Harry Potter, or Spring, or, you know, like she has a lot of really fun themes, and her classes stay interesting, and she has a very bubbly and a welcoming, that's the word I'm looking for, sorry, very welcoming presence and personality. She's really awesome. And she's really big on body positivity and you know, diversity and acceptance in the ballet world, which is something I'm also very passionate about. So again, highly recommend her. She's amazing. You can find her videos for free, or a lot of them for free. She does have a few membership options, but she has plenty of options without getting into any of her memberships as well. And then the other one I want to talk about is if you just want some ballet content without the videos, if maybe you need a short break from the knitting podcasts and you want a similar kind of vibe to watch on YouTube. One of my absolute favorite channels on YouTube in general, not just for ballet, but definitely for ballet, is Ballet Reign. They're these two sisters who are just absolute ballet nerds. They're ballet dancers themselves, and so they have all sorts of different videos, from breaking down various ballets to talking about ballet etiquette to answering any ballet questions people might have, and they're absolutely fascinating whether you're a ballet dancer or not. They're a ton of fun to watch. Highly recommend them. I'll have them linked in the description box below, along with everything else I've talked about today. But yeah, so those are just to answer a few of the questions that I got in my comments. But to go into just a little bit of what I've been working on in my ballet part of my life, my class is actually working on choreographing their dance that they're going to do for their spring showcase. And so this is my first time ever choreographing for a large group like this. I did some choreography back in high school and college, but it was usually smaller, just like me and a few friends. And it was never from a teacher perspective. It was always like student-led choreography. So this is a lot of fun. I'm having a great time with it. The song I picked is The Mouse Waltz from the Beatrix Potter ballet, which most people don't know about. But if you go on YouTube and you search for the Jemima Puddle Duck ballet variation, that's from the same ballet, and it is, oh my gosh, it is perfection. It's so good. Like, seriously, highly recommend. The whole thing is done by a dancer in like a full Jemima Puddle Duck like suit, and it's just joyful. Like, it's so much fun. And so I've never seen the whole ballet. I've only seen the Jemima Puddle Duck variation. But when I was looking for music, I found this song called The Mouse Waltz. And if you want to look it up, it's music from the Royal Ballet film, Tales of Beatrix Potter. The Mouse Waltz is the title, and it's so much fun. It's this big dramatic waltz music, and I have quite a large class, and so we're having a lot of fun choreographing the different sections with different dancers, and has a lot of movement and a lot of traveling, and seriously an absolute blast. But yeah, so that's what's going on in the ballet world. I get to work the rest of the day today on figuring out a bit more of the choreography and then figuring out the costumes. So I'm super excited for my class, and yeah, a lot of fun. Working with teens and adults is a lot of fun too, because I just feel like they're so engaged. Like, you're at an age when you're a little older coming into ballet where you're really, really choosing it for yourself, and you're really, really excited to be there. And not that kids aren't, they are excited to be there, but there's a little bit more momentum involved. There's a little bit more, you know, well, mom signed me up for this and I just always go, and, you know, it's a thing. Whereas when you're a teenager or an adult, you know, later teen especially, and you're just coming into it and you're choosing to do something that is hard and outside of your comfort zone, and, you know, physically and mentally very demanding, and then go up on stage even and show people what you've been working on and perform, and to have that kind of courage, like, it's a very special thing, and I'm so grateful to be able to be a part of it with my students. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's pretty cool. So I was really happy when a few of you in the comments wanted to hear a little bit more about it. I'm always happy to talk about ballet. It is, yeah, one of my favorite things in the entire world. So, but yeah, thank you so much for watching. This has been a blast. You guys are the best. Thank you. If you want to give this video a like, I'd really appreciate it. Comment down below. Let me know what you're working on. Let me know what your other hobbies are, if they compete with knitting, or if you're able to find room for all of your hobbies, because trust me, I have such a hard time balancing them all when all I want to be doing is, you know, all of them all of the time. And yeah, or even just to say hi. I've just been enjoying hearing so much from all of you, and, you know, where you're from and how widespread this video is getting. It's seriously made my day every day that I see your guys' comments. So yeah, but I'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much. Bye.